Thank you so much to the panel. I'd now like to invite the IESO's new board chair, the Honourable Joe Oliver, to formally close the summit. As many of you know, Mr. Oliver is the former Minister of Finance, Minister of Natural Resources, Minister responsible for the GTA, and Member of Parliament for Eglinton Lawrence. Mr. Oliver will share his perspectives and key learnings from the day and how the IESO will continue to engage with stakeholders and communities. Please welcome the Honourable Joe Oliver.
Well, good afternoon. Thank you very much for that introduction, and thank you all for attending and not leaving while Canadians are outside celebrating the Raptors championship. Now that was an electrifying victory. I hope you found the summit interesting and productive. I certainly have, as I am becoming immersed in the electricity sector. Over the years, I've dealt with the unique opportunities and challenges of Canada's energy industry, but in terms of complexity, the Ontario electricity market is in a league of its own. Throughout my career in capital markets, securities regulation, and politics, I've always valued the perspective of stakeholders. So I'm committed to the IESO's policy of engagement, and I'm encouraged that our stakeholders are proactive about sharing their views. During one of my first days at the IESO, I attended a stakeholder advisory committee focused on market renewal. And I was encouraged by the willingness of stakeholders, both committee members and those in the audience, to advance their interests in market renewal and to highlight their concerns. Stakeholders expressed support, they offered suggestions about how to improve it, and they voiced opposition to some of our plans. We listened, and now it's incumbent on the IESO to respond. This morning, Peter Gregg confirmed that is what we intend to do. There's a lot to absorb from today's sessions. I'm not going to do a total recap, certainly not the end of the session, but I just will mention the U.S. Federal Energy Regulatory Commission told us about its effort to more fully integrate storage into the U.S. energy markets. We heard about challenges and opportunities expected from increasing utilization of distributed energy resources. And this afternoon, we had a panel discussion that gave us a lot to think about the former Conservation First framework. And finally, Paul, Derek, Annette, and Leonard provided us with valuable insights as leaders in this sector. I appreciate how much change has taken place, and I know there's more in store. So I want to very briefly provide you with my perspective and where my focus will be as we pursue our overarching objective of providing safe, reliable, and affordable energy to Ontario families and businesses. First, there is an opportunity for greater participation in Ontario's electricity markets. What started as a small club has now grown to almost 600 market participants. As the discussion this morning on distributed energy resources indicated, that number is likely to grow, creating more Ontario jobs and further diversifying this marketplace. Last year, nuclear and hydro met 86% of the province's electricity needs. But other sources are important too, including non-hydro renewables and demand response resources, with wind at 7%, gas at 6%, and solar at biomass at 0.7%, totaling 14%. And the result is that Ontario's electricity system was over 93% carbon-free in 2018, something too few people appreciate. That compares very favorably to other system operators in the United States. For example, in New York, the supply mix is 56% emission-free. In New England, 49%. The PJM system is 40%, and the Midwest IESO, with its heavy reliance on gas and coal, is only 24% non-emitting. For the European Union, the number was about 52% in 2016, the conclusion is that Ontario can boast a very green electricity marketplace. However, moving from the 86% supplied by nuclear and hydro to 93% has exacted a financial toll on ratepayers. The so-called Fair Hydro program artificially lowered costs for residential customers by about a quarter by pushing costs to taxpayers now and potentially ratepayers in the future. Still, affordability remains a problem for too many families of lesser means. And as you know, the Fair Hydro rate did not apply to large industrial customers. Therefore, a Hydro Quebec study shows large customers in the Ontario area pay electricity rates of $10.66 per megawatt hour, which is higher than industrial customers in other large Canadian cities. The study also shows that Toronto area industrial customers pay some 20 to 25% more than companies in U.S. cities. This price differential undermines competitiveness and therefore jobs, capital investment, and economic growth. To understand why rates are higher in Ontario, we need only look at the contributors to Ontario's electricity costs. Nuclear and hydro cost 7.5 cents per kilowatt hour, yet on average, Ontarians are paying 12 cents. That means the remaining 14% of our energy supply costs almost 40 cents. In 2018, wind and solar represented a tenth of energy production in Ontario, but accounted for over a quarter of the overall cost of generation. Now, people can debate whether that can be justified as a matter of public policy, but it's important to start with the facts. Most of these expenses are locked in by long-term contracts. However, happily, wind and solar prices will decline because of technological improvements, and that's relevant because the IESO is now agnostic about the sources of power, and it values competition. The provincial government is consulting on the Industrial Conservation Initiative. The ICI encourages large businesses and industry to reduce electricity consumption during the 5 peak hours of the year. While there is a significant reward for doing so, there's also a significant impact for customers unable to adjust consumption during those 5 hours. Yes, the ICI provides a benefit, since that would reduce demand by some 1,500 megawatts. It is one of the largest resources the IESO has, but is also one of the most expensive, much more than other options such as demand response. A lot of change has happened that has generated benefits for Ontario, including a diverse, clean, and reliable supply mix. But some of these benefits have created a significant financial burden, and a burden to electricity customers, and so undermined the province's competitiveness. We're applying lessons learned to the market renewal initiative. While long-term contracts signed over the past 16 years addressed reliability, they did so with increased cost for consumers. They also created challenges for our operators and planners, giving the contracts lack of flexibility and weather dependencies. It meant we're locked in for 20 years, even if needs change. And that happened in 2008, when the recession precipitated a significant drop in electricity demand. Now, I'm not predicting the timing of a downturn, except to say that the business cycle is not dead. Procuring electricity through a more competitive process that addresses the need for flexibility will help reduce costs. But unfortunately, significant savings are not imminent. We'll be examining what we can do in the short term while the market renewal savings materialize. How can the private sector find short-term efficiencies? How can the IESO generate further efficiencies? As we welcome new participants in the market, how can we lessen the burden on current participants? This focus on cost and competitiveness, as well as reliability, is what I will be bringing to my role as chair of the IESO. I will be exploring the issues with stakeholders, with Peter Gregg and his management team at the IESO, and my fellow board members. Again, thank you very much for attending. A special thanks to our speakers. I look forward to continuing our discussion.
Mr. Oliver, thank you for sharing your perspectives and your learnings from the day. With that, we are now coming to a close of the 2019 IESO Electricity Summit. We appreciate you all being here with us today to discuss these important issues facing our industry. We do ask that you do take some time to fill out the survey that will be sent to your email inboxes. It's important to help us plan for future summits. And with that, I wish you all a safe and happy summer, and we hope to see you all next year. Take care.